"Release my father and I'll make you walk," the girl cried in the middle of the courthouse. Laughter erupted. A paralyzed judge, a naive girl, an innocent father condemned. No one imagined that those words would change everything and that the impossible was about to happen. The silence in the superior courtroom was absolute when Emily Clark pushed open the double doors with all her might. The creak echoed like a battle cry. 200 pairs of eyes turned towards the entrance, where a girl in a crumpled school uniform and dry tears on her cheeks advanced with determined steps towards the stand. Order, order in the court. Justice Robert Jensen struck his gavel against the table, his wheelchair creaking slightly as he leaned forward, his gray eyes, hardened by decades in the courts, fixed on the small intruder. Who allowed a minor into an ongoing hearing? No one responded. The bailiffs exchanged confused glances. Emily had run so fast that she had bypassed the metal detector before they could stop her. "My dad is innocent." Emily's voice shattered protocol like a lightning bolt rending the sky. "You all know it, but no one wants to hear the truth." A murmur broke out in the room. Journalists pulled out their cameras. Those in the public gallery began to whisper. In the defendant's dock, Dr. Daniel Clark sharply raised his head, his eyes meeting his daughter's. His face was haggard, with several days' growth of beard and dark circles under his eyes, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. "Emily, no," he whispered in desperation, trying to stand but being held back by the officers guarding the dock. Crown Prosecutor Miller immediately stood, adjusting his tie with a theatrical gesture. "Your Honor, this is completely irregular. This child is obstructing legal proceedings. I request she be removed immediately. And you are a liar." Emily turned to the prosecutor, her small finger pointing at him fearlessly. "You know my dad didn't kill anyone. You changed the evidence." The room exploded. The judge's gavel struck once, twice, 3 times. Silence. Bailiffs, remove the minor immediately. 2 security agents advanced towards Emily, but she was faster. She ran directly towards the judge's stand, dodging hands that tried to catch her. Her small body slipped between the lawyers' chairs like a determined shadow. "Your Honor, my dad saved lives his entire existence." The words tumbled from her mouth as fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. "He was the best surgeon at Maple Leaf General Hospital. He operated on children without charging. He helped everyone. Child, understand that this is a court of justice." Justice Jensen spoke in a controlled but firm voice, his hands gripping the armrests of his wheelchair. "Emotions do not change facts. Your father is accused of medical negligence that resulted in a patient's death. The evidence is fabricated." Emily finally reached the stand, so close that she could see the marked veins on the magistrate's hands. "And you know it. Everyone in this court knows it." Dr. Daniel Clark squeezed his eyes shut. His daughter was destroying any possibility of a future appeal with that outburst. Defense counsel Sarah Chen stood up nervously. "Your Honor, I apologize on behalf of my client. The minor is obviously traumatized by." "The minor is telling the truth." An elderly voice rose from the public gallery. A woman with a cane slowly stood. "I was in that hospital the night of the incident. Dr. Clark did everything humanly possible to save that man." "Madam, sit down immediately or you will be removed," the judge ordered. But others began to rise. First 1, then 3, then a dozen people in the gallery. "My son is alive because of Dr. Clark. He operated on my wife without charging us a cent. That man is a hero, not a criminal." The gavel struck furiously. Bailiffs rushed towards the gallery as chaos took over the courtroom. In the midst of the commotion, Emily seized the moment. She climbed the steps to the stand before anyone could stop her, and stood directly in front of Justice Jensen's wheelchair. "Your Honor." Her voice was lower now, but each word cut through the air like a sharp knife. "My mom died years ago. My dad is all I have. If you condemn him today, you will be destroying an innocent family." Robert Jensen looked at the girl in front of him. For a moment, something flickered in his gray eyes. Something that looked like pain, or perhaps recognition. But his face hardened again. "Child, justice is not based on feelings. It is based on facts and evidence. And the evidence against your father is..." "Evidence?" Emily interrupted him, her voice rising again. "Are you talking about evidence when your own son was saved by my father?" The entire courtroom froze. Not a whisper, not a movement. All eyes flew to the judge, whose expression drastically changed. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the armrests. "What? What did you just say?" His voice came out as a hoarse whisper. "Your son, Your Honor." Emily pulled a folded paper from her school uniform pocket. "Years ago, when he was little, he had an accident. Doctors said he wouldn't survive, but my dad operated on him for 11 hours straight. Without rest, without giving up, he saved his life." Crown Prosecutor Miller paled. Defense counsel Chen looked at Emily with wide eyes, not knowing where the girl had gotten that information. Dr. Daniel Clark from the dock shook his head, knowing his daughter had crossed a dangerous line. That's irrelevant to this case, the judge stammered, but his voice had lost all authority. I can't what? Emily took another step closer. You can't be fair. You can't look at the real evidence. You are sitting there judging the man who gave you back your son, and now you are going to condemn him for something he didn't do. Child, stop now. Justice Jensen raised his hand, his face flushed. You are in contempt of court, bailiffs. But Emily had already gone too far to stop. In her childish mind, there was only one way to make this man understand. One way to break the barrier of indifference that separated the powerful from the helpless. She looked at the wheelchair. She looked at the judge's eyes, and then she uttered the words that would change everything. Release my father and I'll make you walk. The silence that followed was absolute, so dense it could be cut with a knife. And then, as if someone had opened a floodgate, laughter exploded throughout the room. Lawyers laughed, journalists laughed, the public laughed. Even the security guards exchanged incredulous smiles. A small girl had just promised to make a man walk who had been paralyzed for years. It was absurd. It was childish. It was impossible. Did you hear her? A journalist whispered to his colleague between laughs. She's going to make the judge walk. This is front-page material. Poor child. She's desperate, a woman in the gallery commented. Crown Prosecutor Miller allowed himself a cruel smile. Your Honor, I believe this scene perfectly demonstrates the unstable mental state surrounding the accused's family. I request this be considered in the sentencing. Even defense counsel Chen closed her eyes in frustration. Her already weak case had just become a joke in the eyes of the court. But Emily did not back down, did not cry, did not lower her gaze. You don't believe me, she said simply, looking directly into Justice Jensen's eyes. Everyone is laughing, but I know something you don't. And what is that, child? The judge asked with a tired voice, his patience exhausted. What is it that you know that all of us with years of experience do not? Emily leaned forward, so close that only the judge could hear her clearly. I know you can walk. The words fell like a silent bomb. Justice Robert Jensen's face transformed. The color completely drained from his skin. His hands began to tremble visibly. His eyes widened with a mixture of shock, fear, and something else. Something that seemed to be pure terror. What did you say? He whispered, his voice barely audible. You can walk, Emily repeated, this time loud enough for the closest lawyers to hear. And I can prove it. The courtroom, which moments before had erupted in laughter, was now in deathly silence. Something in the girl's tone, something in the judge's reaction, had completely changed the atmosphere. Crown Prosecutor Miller leaped to his feet. Your Honor, this is ridiculous. The child is inventing baseless accusations. I demand she be removed and prosecuted for contempt. But Justice Jensen did not respond. He stared fixedly at Emily, as if he were seeing a ghost. His lips moved without emitting sound. Sweat began to form on his forehead. Your Honor, Defense Counsel Chen dared to speak. Are you well? Emily pulled something else from her pocket. A small, yellowed envelope. She placed it on the judge's desk with steady hands. This, she said in a clear voice, is a letter my dad never wanted to show. He told me that patient secrets are sacred, but I'm not a doctor. And my dad is about to go to prison for something he didn't do. The judge looked at the envelope as if it were a venomous snake. He did not touch it. He did not open it. But everyone in the room could see that he recognized that envelope. What is that? The prosecutor demanded, advancing towards the stand. It's the truth, Emily responded, turning to face the entire room. My dad has kept this secret for years. But if everyone is going to destroy his life based on lies, then I am going to save his life by telling the truth. She looked again at the judge, who was now visibly trembling in his wheelchair. That envelope contains medical records that prove your paralysis isn't real. It has the results of the tests my dad ran when you begged him to keep the secret, when you pleaded with him not to say anything. Because silence. The gavel struck with such force that it splintered. Justice Jensen was standing. No, wait. He was still seated, but his entire body leaned forward, his neck muscles tense, his eyes bloodshot. Bailiffs, remove this child immediately and confiscate that envelope. But Emily was faster. She grabbed the envelope and held it high above her head. If anyone touches me, I will read this aloud for the entire court, for all the press, for the whole country. The bailiffs stopped dead in their tracks. Journalists pointed their cameras frantically. Crown Prosecutor Miller looked between the girl and the judge, clearly confused about what on earth was happening. Dr. Daniel Clark from the dock whispered in horror. Emily, "No, please don't do this." But his daughter had already made her decision. "I'll make a deal, Your Honor," she said with a calmness that defied her age. "Release my dad right now. Acknowledge that this trial is a fraud, and I will destroy this envelope. Your secret will die with me. But if you condemn my father today, then the whole world will know the truth about you." The entire courtroom held its breath. This was no longer Dr. Daniel Clark's trial. This had become something much bigger, something no one had seen coming. Justice Robert Jensen looked at the girl in front of him, then at the journalists, then at the envelope she held like a weapon. His career, his reputation, his entire life hung by a thread in the hands of a child. You don't understand what you're doing," he whispered, his voice broken. "I understand perfectly," Emily replied. "I'm saving my dad, no matter the cost." And at that moment, as the cameras captured every second, as the entire courtroom waited with bated breath, Justice Robert Jensen did something no one expected. He began to cry. Justice Robert Jensen's tears streamed down his face as the silence in the courtroom became unbearable. They were not discreet tears. They were choked sobs that shook his shoulders, making his wheelchair tremble slightly. No one in that room had ever seen a magistrate break down like that. "Your Honor," Crown Prosecutor Miller stammered, completely lost as to how to proceed. "You need a recess." But the judge did not respond. He had his hands covering his face, his fingers pressing against his temples, as if trying to stop a pain that came from deep within. Emily, still holding the yellowed envelope high, felt a pang of doubt for the first time. "Dad always says patient secrets are sacred," she whispered to herself, but loud enough for the judge to hear. "He told me that a doctor should never betray trust, no matter what. But he also taught me that the truth is more important than silence when injustice is winning." Dr. Daniel Clark, from the defendant's dock, watched his daughter with a mixture of devastating pride and absolute terror. He knew exactly what that envelope contained. He knew the weight of that secret, and he knew that if Emily revealed it, it would destroy a man who, despite everything, also had a story to tell. "Emily," he called, his voice broken. "Honey, please, put that envelope down. This isn't what I want for you, but it's what I want for you, Dad." She turned to him, her own eyes filling with tears. "I won't let you go to prison. I won't lose the only thing I have left in this world." "Perhaps," an elderly voice interrupted from the gallery. It was the same older woman who had stood up earlier. Now she slowly walked to the front, leaning on her cane. "Perhaps we all need to hear the whole story before judging anyone." "Who are you, pray tell?" the prosecutor demanded, clearly unnerved by the total loss of control of the proceedings. "My name is Eleanor Davies." The elderly woman reached the railing that separated the public from the legal area. "I was a nurse at Maple Leaf General Hospital for 40 years. I was present the night this all began, both Dr. Clark's case and..." She looked meaningfully at the judge, other events that some people prefer to forget. Justice Jensen finally lowered his hands from his face. His eyes were red, swollen, but there was something else in them now. Resignation, perhaps, or perhaps relief. "Nurse Davies." His voice was hoarse. "Please, don't what, Your Honor?" The old woman interrupted him gently but firmly. "Don't tell the truth? Don't reveal what we've kept silent all these years? Look around. Look at that brave child who is willing to destroy her innocence to save her father. Are we truly going to allow this circus to continue?" Defense counsel Sarah Chen cautiously approached Emily. "Little one, give me the envelope. There are legal ways to present evidence without. Legal ways didn't work." Emily backed away, protecting the envelope against her chest. "My dad trusted the legal ways, hired lawyers, presented evidence, did everything right, and they're still going to condemn him because the evidence against him is very strong." Crown Prosecutor Miller intervened, regaining some composure. "The patient died on the operating table. Medical reports show clear negligence. Dr. Clark made wrong decisions that Dr. Clark made the only possible decisions." Eleanor Davies' voice cut through the air like a whip. "That man arrived at the hospital with a massive internal hemorrhage. 3 doctors before Dr. Clark refused to operate because they knew the chances of survival were almost nil. But Dr. Clark never abandons anyone. The records say otherwise." The prosecutor pulled a thick folder from his briefcase. "Here is the testimony of Dr. Marcus Thorne, a colleague of the accused, who states that Dr. Clark operated against protocol, that he took unnecessary risks, that his ego, Dr. Thorne, is a liar." Another voice rose from the gallery. A young man with visible scars on his neck stood up. "My name is Liam O'Connell. Years ago, when I was 8, I had a terrible accident. Dr. Thorne said it was too dangerous to operate on me, that it was better to let nature take its course. Do you know what that means?" It means letting me die. But Dr. Clark disagreed. He operated on me for 14 hours. And here I am, alive thanks to him. More people began to stand, one after another. Similar stories filled the courtroom. He operated on my wife when no one else wanted to risk it. He saved my baby when other doctors gave up. That man is a hero, not a criminal. The gavel struck weakly. Justice Jensen no longer had the strength to control the room. He watched the entire parade of testimonies with a defeated expression. "See, Your Honor?" Emily approached the stand again, the envelope still firmly in her hand. "All these people know who my dad really is, but there's someone else in this room who also knows it very well. Someone who owes him everything." The judge closed his eyes. "Please, child, don't do this. Then do what's right." Emily placed the envelope on the desk, but kept her hand on it. "Tell the truth about my dad. End this unjust trial, and I'll keep your secret forever." It's not that simple. The judge opened his eyes, and for the first time, there was genuine anguish in them. "There are things you don't understand. Reasons why this trial must continue." "Reasons?" Emily tilted her head. "Or threats?" The silence that followed was electric. Crown Prosecutor Miller visibly paled. Defense Counsel Chen exchanged a quick glance with Eleanor Davies, and Dr. Daniel Clark from the dock felt a piece of the puzzle finally fall into place. "You don't want to condemn my dad," Emily said slowly, as if solving a riddle. "Someone is forcing you." "Emily, stop now." Her father tried to stand, but the bailiffs kept him seated. "Don't go down that path. It's dangerous." "Dangerous for whom?" A new voice boomed from the courtroom doors. Everyone turned to see a tall man, about 50, dressed in an expensive suit, entering with confident strides. His presence filled the room in a way that made people instinctively move aside. Dangerous for liars, or dangerous for those who are willing to tell the truth. Mr. Arthur Sterling. Crown Prosecutor Miller pronounced the name as if it were poison. "What are you doing here? This is a closed court. I'm a lawyer." Arthur Sterling smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. "And I've just been hired to represent Dr. Daniel Clark. My first action as his defense is to file a motion to dismiss this entire trial, based on evidence of procedural manipulation." Defense Counsel Chen opened her mouth to protest, but Sterling raised a hand. "Defense Counsel Chen, no offense, but you were assigned to this case precisely because your workload makes you less effective. That was no coincidence. It was planned. Planned." Justice Jensen leaned forward. "Mr. Sterling, you are making very serious accusations. Without evidence Without evidence." Sterling pulled a device from his pocket. "I have conversations between Crown Prosecutor Miller and certain individuals who prefer to remain in the shadows. Conversations discussing exactly how to ensure Dr. Clark's conviction, regardless of the truth." The courtroom exploded in murmurs. Crown Prosecutor Miller leaped to his feet, his face crimson. "That is absolutely false. I demand that device be confiscated immediately. There's no legal way you could have access to conversations private that involve a conspiracy to imprison an innocent man." Sterling arched an eyebrow. "You're right, prosecutor. There's no legal way I should have this. But here it is, complete with dates, times, and names." Emily looked at the newcomer with a mixture of awe and suspicion. "Who are you, really? Why are you helping my dad?" Arthur Sterling looked directly at her, and for the first time, his expression softened. "Because, little one, your father once saved someone very important to me, someone whom doctors had given up on, and because I've spent years waiting for the right moment to repay that debt." "Who?" Emily asked. "My daughter," Sterling replied simply. "Years ago, when she was your age, she had a brain aneurysm. Dr. Clark operated on her when 5 different surgeons said it was impossible. Today, she's studying medicine because she wants to be like the man who gave her a second chance at life." Tears ran down Emily's cheeks. So there are more people my dad saved?" "Hundreds," Eleanor Davies intervened. "Throughout his career, Dr. Clark has saved hundreds of people whom other doctors considered lost causes, but that also earned him enemies." "Enemies?" Defense Counsel Chen finally found her voice. "Are you saying this trial is revenge?" "Not just revenge." Sterling walked to the center of the room, his voice projecting for all to hear. "It's a message. A message to all doctors who think of putting their patients above profits, to those who reject pharmaceutical company bribes, to those who expose corrupt medical practices." "Those are very serious accusations," Justice Jensen said, but his voice lacked conviction, "and I can prove every one." Sterling placed a briefcase on the defense table. "But first, Your Honor, I need you to make a decision. Are you going to allow the truth to come out, or are you going to continue being part of this farce?" The judge looked at Sterling, then at Emily, who still held the yellowed envelope, then at the dozens of people in the gallery, all looking at him with hope and plea. Finally, his eyes rested on Dr. Daniel Clark. "Dr. Clark," he said slowly, "you saved my son. Years ago, when the best specialists in the country said there was no hope, you found a way." He operated for hours, refusing to rest, refusing to give up. The entire courtroom listened in absolute silence. After that operation, the judge continued, his voice breaking, "You visited me privately. You showed me something you discovered during my son's preoperative exams. Something about me." Emily gripped the envelope tighter. "You told me you had found evidence that my paralysis, the accident that put me in this chair years ago, had inconsistencies. You showed me studies that suggested that with the correct treatment, I could walk again." Emily completed the sentence. The judge nodded slowly. "But you also explained to me why I couldn't make it public, why I had to keep that secret. Because if the world found out that my paralysis wasn't permanent, that I had been in this chair for reasons that weren't entirely physical, I would lose my job." Arthur Sterling said softly, "His reputation, everything he had built." "But that's not all," Eleanor Davies added, her voice trembling. "Is it, Your Honor?" Justice Robert Jensen closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he had made a decision. "No," he admitted. "It's not all. The truth is that after my accident, I received $1 million insurance compensation, a compensation based on the premise that I would never walk again. If the world discovered that wasn't true, I would have to return all that money. Money I had already spent on treatments for my son, on my daughter's education, on supporting my family." "So Dr. Clark kept your secret," Emily said. "To protect your family?" "Yes," the judge nodded. "And I swore I would never forget that kindness, that if I could ever help him, I would do so without hesitation. Then help him. Now," Emily placed the envelope directly in the judge's hands. "Be the man my dad believed you were. Be just." Robert Jensen took the envelope with trembling hands. He looked at it for a long moment. Then, before the astonished eyes of everyone in the courtroom, he tore it in half. "This secret," he said with a firm voice, "dies here and now, not because I am being blackmailed, not because I am afraid, but because I understand that some truths are more important than others." He looked directly at Emily. "You are right, child. This trial is a farce, and I have been a coward to let it go this far." He turned to Crown Prosecutor Miller, who had been watching everything with growing horror. "Prosecutor, your evidence against Dr. Clark has been questioned by multiple credible witnesses. Your case relies on the testimony of a single doctor whose credibility is now in doubt. And if Mr. Sterling truly has evidence of procedural manipulation—" "Your Honor, this is absurd," Miller shouted. "You can't just dismiss a case because a child made an emotional display. Procedural rules exist to serve justice." The judge interrupted him, "Not to obstruct it. And now I see clearly that justice is not being served in this court." He raised his gavel. "This trial," he declared, "is suspended indefinitely until a full investigation into the accusations of procedural manipulation and fabricated evidence is conducted." The gavel fell, the sound reverberating like thunder. The courtroom erupted. Journalists ran towards the exits, yelling into their phones. The public cheered in jubilation. Crown Prosecutor Miller threw papers into the air, protesting furiously, and in the midst of the chaos, Emily ran towards her father. The bailiffs, confused by the turn of events, did not stop her when she jumped the railing and launched herself into Daniel Clark's arms. He caught her, hugging her so tightly as if he wanted to absorb her into himself. "You did it, my brave one," he whispered against her hair. "You did it." "No, Dad," she sobbed against his chest. "You did it. You saved the judge. You saved everyone. I just made sure they remembered." But as father and daughter embraced, neither noticed the dark figure observing from the back of the courtroom. A man who had been present throughout the proceedings, taking meticulous notes, recording every word. This trial had been suspended, but the war had only just begun, and the forces that had tried to destroy Dr. Daniel Clark would not give up so easily. Night had fallen over the city when Emily and her father finally left the courthouse. Journalists awaited them like a hungry pack, cameras flashing, microphones extending like desperate tentacles to capture every word. "Dr. Clark, how do you feel after the trial's suspension?" "Emily, is it true you blackmailed the judge?" "Doctor, is there corruption in the judicial system?" Arthur Sterling appeared as a shield between them and the press, his imposing presence pushing back the chaos. "No comment. My client will not make statements until the investigation concludes." A black car waited at the curb. Sterling quickly guided them inside, closing the door just as a journalist tried to push his microphone in. The vehicle sped away, leaving the media circus behind. Inside the car, Emily finally allowed herself to tremble. The adrenaline that had sustained her courage for hours evaporated, leaving her exhausted and scared. Daniel hugged her against his chest, feeling the silent sobs she had held back for too long. "It's over, my brave one," he whispered, kissing her head. "It's really over, or it's just beginning, Dad." Emily's broken little voice cut through his heart. Daniel exchanged a look with Sterling, who was driving with a grim expression. Both knew the answer, but neither wanted to voice it aloud. The car did not head to their home. Instead, Sterling drove them to a discreet building on the outskirts of the city, a place that looked abandoned, but whose windows glowed with dim light from within. "Where are we?" Daniel asked when the vehicle stopped. "Somewhere safe," Sterling replied, turning off the engine. "I need to show you something that will change everything you think you know about this case." They entered through a side door. The interior was surprisingly modern. Computers, multiple screens, metal filing cabinets. It looked like a private investigation office. A young woman, about 30, looked up as they entered. She had her hair pulled back in a high ponytail and wore thick-rimmed glasses. On her desk were dozens of photographs, documents, and notes connected with red threads. "Dr. Clark, Emily," Sterling made the introductions. "This is Olivia Riley, private investigator, and the person who has been unraveling this conspiracy for months." "Months?" Daniel frowned. "But I was only accused 8 weeks ago." "But the conspiracy against you began much earlier, about a year ago," Olivia completed, adjusting her glasses. She pointed to one of the screens, where a photograph of an older man appeared, silver-haired, with a predatory expression in an expensive suit. "Do you recognize this man, Dr. Clark?" Daniel studied the image and felt his blood run cold. It's Victor Blackwood, CEO of Phoenix Labs." "Exactly." Olivia tapped the keyboard, and more images appeared. "One of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country, and your #1 personal enemy. I don't understand." Emily looked at the photos with confusion. "Why would a medicine man want to hurt my dad?" Olivia knelt to be at the girl's eye level. "A while ago, your dad discovered something terrible. Phoenix Labs was selling faulty medications to public hospitals, medicines that didn't work correctly but were cheaper to produce. Your dad reported this, and they crucified me for it," Daniel added bitterly. "No authority investigated. Instead, they accused me of defamation. I had to publicly retract to avoid losing my medical license." "But you didn't really retract, did you?" Sterling smiled. "You continued documenting every case, every affected patient, gathering evidence." "I had to," Daniel defended himself. "Children were dying from fake medications. I couldn't just ignore it." Olivia returned to her computer. "Victor Blackwood knew, and he decided you were too dangerous to leave free. He needed to silence you permanently. Not with physical violence, that would be too obvious, but by destroying your credibility, your career, your life. The patient who died," Emily connected the pieces. "The one they said Dad killed, his name was Richard Miller." Olivia showed a photo of a middle-aged man. He worked as an accountant for Phoenix Labs. He had discovered financial irregularities related to the faulty medications. He was going to testify against the company. The silence in the room was as dense as lead. "Are you saying that Daniel couldn't complete the sentence? That Richard Miller didn't die from medical negligence?" Sterling completed. "He was murdered, and they designed everything so you would take the blame." Emily felt her legs give way. Daniel held her before she fell, leading her to a nearby chair. The girl's world, which had already been violently shaken, now completely crumbled. "How?" was all Daniel could ask. Olivia began to explain, her voice technical but laden with contained rage. "Richard Miller arrived at Maple Leaf General with internal hemorrhage. Records show you ordered routine blood tests before the operation, but those tests were manipulated." She showed documents on the screen. Someone changed the results to hide that Miller had been poisoned with an extremely potent anticoagulant. "When you operated, it was impossible to stop the bleeding. No matter what you did, the man was already doomed." "My God." Daniel sank into a chair, his face in his hands. "But there's more." Olivia continued relentlessly. "Dr. Marcus Thorne, your colleague who testified against you, what about him? He received a transfer of $2 million into an offshore account 3 days after Miller's death money from a subsidiary of Phoenix Labs." Emily leaped to her feet, her small fists clenched. "So that doctor lied. My dad is innocent." "Completely," Sterling nodded. "But proving this in court will be complicated. Victor Blackwood has deep connections, judges, politicians, police all in his pocket. So, what do we do? Daniel asked, feeling more lost than ever. We fight. A new voice joined the conversation. Everyone turned to see Justice Robert Jensen entering through the same side door, but this time, he was not in his wheelchair. He stood, supported by crutches, walking slowly but deliberately towards them. Emily gasped. Daniel sprang to his feet, rushing towards the judge. "What are you doing? Shouldn't you be trying to walk?" Jensen completed, finally reaching a chair and dropping into it with an exhausted sigh. "Dr. Clark, we both know the truth. You told me years ago." He took off his coat, revealing arms with clearly developed muscles. "My body can walk. The studies you showed me were clear. Regenerated nerves, functional muscles. Physically, I am capable, but mentally," Daniel began. "Mentally, I am a coward," Jensen interrupted him. "The trauma of the accident, the fear of losing everything if the truth came out, the guilt of lying for years, they built a prison in my mind stronger than any physical paralysis." He looked directly at Emily, "Until a brave child showed me what courage truly means. It's not the absence of fear, it's doing what's right despite it." "Why are you here?" Sterling asked, clearly surprised by the magistrate's appearance. "Because I received this today." Jensen pulled an envelope from his pocket. Inside was a single photograph. It was his son, taken that very day, according to the digital date in the corner. Around the boy's head, someone had drawn a target with a red marker. Emily felt her blood run cold. Daniel took the photo, his hands trembling with fury. "Victor Blackwood didn't stop after I suspended the trial," Jensen explained, his voice controlled but heavy with hatred. "He called me personally. He told me that if I didn't condemn Dr. Clark in the new trial, my family would pay the price." "And what did you tell him?" Olivia asked. "To go to hell," Jensen replied simply. "That I'm tired of being his puppet. That this time I'm going to do what's right, no matter the cost." He stood up again, leaning on the crutches. The effort was visible. Sweat ran down his forehead, but he stood tall. "Dr. Clark, you saved my son when no one else wanted to risk it. You taught me that some secrets weigh more than lies. Now I'm going to do the same for you. I'm going to testify about the conspiracy, about the threats, about everything. That will destroy your career," Daniel warned. "Perhaps," Jensen nodded. "But at least I'll be able to look my son in the eye without feeling shame." A phone rang, breaking the moment. Olivia answered. She listened briefly, and her face paled. "What's wrong?" Sterling asked immediately. "It was my contact in the police." She hung up with trembling hands. "They've just issued an arrest warrant for Dr. Clark. They say he violated the terms of his provisional release by leaving the city without permission." "But I didn't leave the city," Daniel protested. "We know," Sterling growled. "But Blackwood doesn't need it to be true. He just needs an excuse to lock you up again." "How much time do we have?" Jensen asked. "Patrol cars are on their way. 15 minutes, maybe 20. Emily felt panic wash over her. They had just freed her father, and now they were going to arrest him again. All the sacrifice, all the pain had been useless. "No," she said aloud, surprising herself with the firmness of her tone. "We're not going to let them win, Emily, honey," Daniel began. "No, Dad," she interrupted him, and there was something in her eyes that made everyone in the room pay attention. "That bad man thinks he can scare us. He thinks we're weak because we're good." She turned to Olivia. "You said you have evidence against him, right? All those photos and papers?" "Yes, but it's not enough for a criminal case without supporting testimonies." "Then let's get testimonies," Emily declared. "My dad has saved hundreds of people. All those people who stood up in the courtroom, all of them can speak. They can tell their stories." "That won't stop the arrest warrant," Sterling pointed out, "but it can create public pressure." Jensen understood where Emily was going. "If we expose this publicly, if we make people see that this is a witch hunt, Victor Blackwood will have to back down." "He'll get burned," Olivia completed, her eyes shining with renewed hope. "His power is based on operating in the shadows. If we drag him into the light, he'll burn." Sterling smiled dangerously. A plan began to form fast, risky, possibly disastrous, but it was their only chance. "Olivia," Sterling took charge. "I need you to contact every independent journalist you know, the ones not in Blackwood's pocket. Organize a press conference for early tomorrow." "Eleanor Davies," Daniel added. "She knows all the patients I've treated. She can arrange testimonies." "I'll contact my colleagues in the judicial system," Jensen offered. "The ones who are tired of the corruption. There are more than Blackwood thinks." "And me?" Emily asked. "What can I do?" Daniel knelt in front of her, taking her small hands in his. "You, my brave one, You're going to do the hardest thing of all. You're going to trust that the adults will finally do things right. And if they can't, tears filled her eyes. And if they take you again? Then he kissed her forehead. You already taught me that a child with courage can change the world. I trust you'll find a way to save us again. The sound of sirens began to resonate in the distance. Everyone tensed. We have to move. Sterling pushed Daniel towards a back door. There's a tunnel that leads to the neighboring building. Olivia, destroy any evidence that they were here. Wait. Jensen stopped Daniel with a hand on his shoulder. Doctor, if we don't see each other again, we will see each other again. Daniel interrupted him. And when that happens, I want to see you walking without those crutches. Jensen smiled faintly. It's a deal. Emily, Daniel, and Sterling disappeared through the back door just as the sirens grew deafening outside. Olivia began to frantically collect documents, putting everything into boxes she would throw out the back window into a waiting truck. Justice Robert Jensen remained alone in the room, listening to the police boots hitting the pavement outside. He stood up again, without the crutches. This time his legs trembled, threatening to collapse, but he held firm. For my son, he whispered to himself. For all the children who deserve a better world. When the officers burst through the front door, they found only the magistrate standing in an empty room. And for the first time in years, Robert Jensen did not feel fear. He felt purpose. Somewhere in the city, in a luxurious office on the top floor of a skyscraper, Victor Blackwood received news that Dr. Clark had escaped. He smiled. Perfect, he said into the phone. Now he's a fugitive. That makes things much easier. He hung up and dialed another number. Activate Plan B, he ordered. It's time for little Emily to learn what happens to those who cross me. The night grew darker, and the real war had only just begun. The light of dawn was just beginning to filter through the windows of the small apartment where Emily and her father had taken refuge. It was a modest place in an overlooked neighborhood, provided by one of the patients Daniel had saved years ago. No one would think to look for them there, or so they thought. Emily had not been able to sleep. Every street noise startled her. Every shadow seemed threatening. She was sitting on the worn sofa, hugging a pillow, when she heard her father speaking softly on the phone in the next room. Eleanor, I need you to trust me, Daniel was saying. Gather everyone you can for the conference. Every patient, every testimony counts. Emily quietly got up and approached the partially open door. I know it's dangerous, her father continued. But if we don't act now, Blackwood will win. And he won't just destroy me, he'll destroy anyone who dares to expose his crimes. He hung up and turned, meeting his daughter's eyes, watching him from the doorway. You couldn't sleep? It wasn't a question, Dad. Emily entered the room. What's going to happen to us? Daniel hugged her tightly. We're going to win, my brave one, because the truth always. The sound of shattering glass exploded from the living room. Both froze. Then voices, heavy footsteps, too many to be normal police. The back door, Daniel whispered urgently, pushing Emily towards the small balcony. Go down the fire escape. Run to the coffee shop on the corner. Ask for Mrs. Henderson. She'll protect you. I'm not leaving you. Emily clung to him. You have to. The urgency in his voice scared her more than anything. If they catch both of us, there will be no one to tell the truth. Go. The bedroom door burst open. 3 men entered, their faces covered by dark ski masks. They weren't police. They were something much worse. Dr. Daniel Clark. One of them spoke in a distorted voice. Mr. Blackwood wants to have a conversation with you. Let me go. Daniel struggled as they grabbed him, his eyes fixed on Emily, who was paralyzed with terror. My daughter has nothing to do with this. On the contrary, another of the men turned to Emily. The child is exactly what we need to ensure your cooperation. Emily ran. Her legs carried her to the balcony. As she heard her father scream her name, she raced down the metal steps so fast she almost fell. Her bare feet slapped against the cold metal, tears blurring her vision. She reached the alley and ran. She ran faster than she had ever run in her life. She could hear footsteps behind her, voices yelling at her to stop. The coffee shop was 2 blocks away, so close, yet so far. A black car appeared out of nowhere, blocking her path. Emily tried to change direction, but strong arms lifted her from the ground. She screamed, kicked, bit, but it was useless. Easy, little one. A familiar voice spoke. Emily stopped struggling, looking up in absolute shock. It was Dr. Marcus Thorne. You, she whispered in horror. You lied about my dad. Yes. Thorne placed her in the back seat of the car, but not roughly, with something that almost seemed like guilt. And now I'm going to make amends. The car started. Emily pressed against the window, watching the men chasing her fall behind, confused. Thorne drove with precision, taking back streets he clearly knew well. Where are you taking me? Emily demanded, trying to sound brave, though her voice trembled. "Somewhere safe," Thorne replied, "and then you're going to hear something your father never wanted you to know." They drove for 20 minutes until they reached an abandoned hospital on the outskirts. Thorne stopped the car and turned to Emily, taking off the glasses he always wore. His eyes were red, tired. 2 years ago, he began without preamble. "My youngest son got sick. Aggressive leukemia. He needed an experimental, extremely expensive medication. I didn't have that money." Emily listened in silence, not understanding where this was going. "Victor Blackwood came to me," Thorne continued, his voice breaking. "He offered me a deal. He would pay for all my son's treatment if I did what he asked when the time came." "Lie about my dad," Emily completed. "Yes," Thorne nodded miserably. "When Richard Miller died, Blackwood called me. He gave me an exact script of what to say in court, that your father had operated negligently, that he had ignored protocols, that his ego caused the death. And you accepted." Emily's voice was full of contempt. "My son was dying." Thorne defended himself, but without conviction. "What would you do to save someone you love?" Emily thought of everything she had done for her father, the envelope she had brought to court, the threats she had made, and understood with painful clarity that she and Thorne were not so different. "But they saved your son," she said finally. "No," Thorne shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "He died 3 months ago. The medications Blackwood provided were from the same faulty line your father tried to expose. My son died because of the same lies I helped protect." The silence in the car was heavy as lead. "That's why I'm here." Thorne wiped his face. "That's why I rescued you, because I've lived long enough as a coward. My son deserved a better father, and your father deserves someone to finally tell the truth." "The truth about what?" Emily asked. Thorne pulled a thick envelope from the glove compartment. "Everything is in here. Recordings of my conversations with Blackwood, documents proving Richard Miller was poisoned, bank transfers, names of all the doctors, judges, and police on Blackwood's payroll. Why didn't you hand it over sooner?" "I was afraid," he admitted. "Blackwood threatened me. He said if I spoke, my family would pay, but then I saw a 10-year-old girl do what I didn't have the courage to do. I saw your bravery in that courtroom, and I was so ashamed of myself that I couldn't keep living with that guilt." He handed the envelope to Emily. "Take this to Arthur Sterling. He'll know what to do. It's the only copy. If anything happens to it, Blackwood wins. And you?" Emily took the envelope with trembling hands. "I'm going to get your father back." Thorne started the car again. "I know where they have him. As long as Blackwood thinks I'm on his side, I can move freely." "How do I know you're not tricking me?" Emily challenged him. Thorne looked at her through the rearview mirror. "You don't, but your father once trusted in people's goodness, even when he shouldn't have. I guess we're both betting that some of that goodness still exists in this world." He drove her back to the city, but not to the apartment. He dropped her off in front of the building where Olivia had her office. Before Emily got out, Thorne spoke one last time. "Tell your father, I'm sorry, that if I could go back." "You can," Emily interrupted him. "You can go back by doing the right thing now." Thorne nodded, a shadow of a sad smile on his face. "You're wiser than many adults I know. Your father must be very proud." The car drove away, leaving Emily alone on the sidewalk with an envelope that held the fate of all of them. She ran up the stairs and knocked frantically on Olivia's door. Arthur Sterling opened it, his expression transforming from surprise to alarm when he saw the girl alone. "Where's your father?" "They took him." Emily quickly entered, handing him the envelope. "But we have this, Dr. Thorne." He switched sides. "This has everything we need." Olivia took the envelope and began to examine the contents. Her eyes widened with each document, each recording, each piece of incriminating evidence. "My God," she whispered. This is enough to completely destroy Blackwood, to lock up dozens of people. It's what they'll kill my dad for if they discover it exists," Emily completed. Sterling's phone rang. He answered, listened briefly, and his face paled. "It was Robert Jensen," he said when he hung up. "He just received a message from Blackwood. If we don't hand over all the evidence and dismantle the press conference in the next 3 hours, they'll kill Dr. Clark." Emily felt the world stop. They had won the evidence, but they were about to lose the only thing that mattered. "What do we do?" Olivia asked, looking between Sterling and Emily. The girl straightened up, wiping away the tears that had begun to form. In her eyes was something new. It wasn't just bravery or desperation. It was absolute determination. "We do both," she said with a firm voice. "We save my dad and destroy Blackwood at the same time." "How?" Sterling asked. Emily smiled. It wasn't a child's smile. It was the smile of someone who had learned to play the adult's game and was ready to win. "With the only power Blackwood can't buy or threaten," she replied. "The truth, live for the whole world." and she began to explain a plan so risky, so impossible, that it could only work if everyone played their part perfectly. The clock ticked down. 3 hours. The final battle was about to begin. The press room of the City Convention Center was packed. Television cameras, curious journalists who had heard about the conference that promised to reveal the truth about the country's largest pharmaceutical conspiracy. It was exactly what Emily had planned. Maximum public exposure. But what no one knew was that this wasn't just a press conference. It was a trap, and the bait was herself. "Are you sure about this?" Olivia asked her for the umpteenth time, adjusting the small hidden microphone on Emily's blouse. "If something goes wrong, then my dad dies anyway." Emily replied with a calm she didn't feel. "This is our only chance." Arthur Sterling checked his watch nervously. Thorne said he'd have Daniel in position by 11 o'clock. "It's 10:45, 15 minutes. "And Justice Jensen?" Emily asked. "On his way," Sterling confirmed. "But Emily, you need to understand something. If Robert truly tries what you planned, his body might not respond. Psychogenic paralysis doesn't just disappear because you wish it to. It needs an extreme emotional catalyst." "I know." Emily looked towards the stage where dozens of patients saved by her father were already seated, ready to testify. "That's why it's going to work." The doors opened, and Eleanor Davies entered, followed by Justice Robert Jensen in his wheelchair. But Emily noticed something different about him. There was determination in his eyes. Purpose. "Everything ready?" Jensen asked. "Everything," Sterling confirmed. "Live broadcast will begin in exactly 10 minutes. 20 different channels, plus online streams. Once it starts, there's no turning back." "Good," Jensen nodded, because Victor Blackwood just confirmed his attendance. The silence that followed was electric. "What?" Olivia almost screamed. "Blackwood is coming here. I personally sent him a special invitation." Jensen smiled without humor. "I told him if he wanted to stop this conference, he'd have to come face to face. His ego wouldn't let him refuse." "That's perfect," Emily said, her mind already adjusting the plan. "If he's here, he can't hurt my dad. He'll need Dad as leverage." "Exactly," Jensen agreed. "But be careful, child. Blackwood is dangerous when he feels cornered." 10:55. The room was filled to maximum capacity. Cameras were positioned. Journalists prepared their questions. And somewhere in the crowd, Emily knew Blackwood's men were waiting for orders. 11 o'clock. Arthur Sterling walked onto the stage. The murmur of the crowd immediately quieted. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice resonated through the loudspeakers, "thank you for attending this conference which will change the way you understand this country's healthcare system." At that moment, the back doors opened. Victor Blackwood entered as if he owned the place. Tall, silver-haired, perfectly coiffed, suit costing more than a new car. His presence demanded attention. But Emily noticed something. His eyes frantically searched for something, or someone. "We are here," Sterling continued, "to expose a conspiracy that has cost innocent lives, to reveal how a pharmaceutical company has manipulated medications, bribed officials, and murdered those who threatened to expose the truth." Blackwood stopped in the middle of the aisle. His face remained calm, but Emily saw the tension in his shoulders. And to begin, Sterling pointed towards Emily. "I want to introduce you to the person who had the courage that many adults lacked. Emily Clark." Emily walked onto the stage. The cameras turned towards her. Thousands, perhaps millions, of people were watching at that moment. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone could hear it. "My name is Emily Clark," she began, her voice amplified by the microphones. "I am 10 years old, and my dad, Dr. Daniel Clark, is being falsely accused of a crime he did not commit." As the audience listened, Blackwood began to move towards the front. His bodyguards strategically dispersed throughout the room. "But I'm not here just to defend him," Emily continued. "I'm here to accuse the real criminal, the man responsible for the death of dozens, perhaps hundreds of people. The man standing right there." She pointed directly at Victor Blackwood. The cameras swung violently. Flashes exploded. Blackwood froze, caught in the spotlight of 20 live broadcasting cameras. "Those are very serious accusations, child," Blackwood spoke with a controlled voice. But Emily saw the venom behind the mask. Accusations that could be considered defamation. "Defamation?" Emily pulled a device from her pocket. "Even when I have this?" It was the USB Dr. Thorne had provided, containing recordings, documents, irrefutable evidence. "This," Emily held it high, "has recordings of you ordering the poisoning of Richard Miller. It has bank transfers paying bribes to judges, police, and doctors. It has lists of all the hospitals that received faulty medications. Everything." Color drained from Blackwood's face. That's impossible." No such evidence exists. No, a new voice joined in. Dr. Marcus Thorne walked onto the stage, his face projected on giant screens. Because I personally collected it. Every conversation I had with you, every instruction you gave me to lie in court, it's all recorded. Blackwood took a step back, his eyes moving frantically, searching for an exit. And it's not just your word against mine, Thorne continued. 37 more doctors are ready to testify, all bribed by you, all tired of living with that guilt. Furthermore, Justice Jensen rolled his wheelchair to the front of the stage. I will personally testify about the threats I received to condemn Dr. Clark. Threats against my family, against my son. The room exploded. Journalists shouted questions. Cameras focused on Blackwood, who was now clearly panicking. This is a circus, he finally screamed. A conspiracy against a successful businessman. You have nothing. We have everything. Olivia Riley appeared on a side screen via video conference. She began to play a recording. Blackwood's voice was unmistakable. 2 days after the press conference that rocked the country, Emily woke up in a hospital bed. She wasn't injured, but the emotional and physical exhaustion of the past few weeks had finally caught up with her. The doctors insisted she needed rest and observation. Her father slept in a chair beside her, Daniel's hand holding hers, even in dreams. Justice Robert Jensen was in the adjacent room, undergoing intensive physical therapy. Videos of him standing had gone viral, viewed more than 50 million times in less than 48 hours. But Emily didn't feel victorious. She felt something dark approaching. The door opened silently. Arthur Sterling entered, his grave expression saying everything before he spoke a word. We need to talk, he whispered, trying not to wake Daniel. Now. Emily carefully slid out of bed. She followed Sterling to the empty hospital corridor, where Olivia Riley waited with a tablet in trembling hands. What happened? Emily asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. We identified Blackwood's partner. Olivia turned the tablet. On the screen was a photograph of an older woman, approximately 60 years old, elegant, with cold eyes that seemed to see through the soul. Her name is Dr. Eleanor Vance. A doctor? Emily frowned. She's Blackwood's boss? No, not exactly, Sterling explained. She's much worse. Blackwood was just the public front. Eleanor Vance is who truly controls Phoenix Labs, and she also controls 3 private hospitals, 2 medical insurers, and has ties to politicians at the highest level. And why wasn't she arrested with Blackwood? Because officially, there's no direct connection between them, Olivia replied. All the evidence we had pointed to Blackwood. Eleanor made sure to never leave a trace. Until now, Sterling added darkly. Because after the conference, she got nervous. And nervous people make mistakes. Olivia slid another image. It was a photograph taken during the press conference in the back of the room. A thin man, approximately 40 years old, with dark glasses, was meticulously taking notes. Emily felt her blood run cold. He was at the courthouse the day it all started. I saw him in the gallery. His name is Peter Wallace, Sterling confirmed. He works directly for Eleanor. He's been documenting every move we've made, every person we've spoken with. Why? Emily felt a primal fear creeping up her spine. Because Eleanor doesn't just want revenge. Olivia closed the tablet, unable to keep looking at the images. She wants to send a message that no one, absolutely no one, can expose her and survive to tell the tale. Sterling knelt in front of Emily, taking her shoulders gently but firmly. Emily, I need you to listen very carefully. This woman is more dangerous than Blackwood because she's intelligent. She's not going to attack you directly. She's going to do something much worse. What? She's going to destroy everything you love, slowly, systematically, until you wish you had never started this fight. The words fell like stones into Emily's stomach. Your dad is safe here. We have guards at every entrance, Sterling assured. But there are other people who helped. Eleanor Davies, Dr. Thorne, Justice Jensen, all of them are now targets. As if the universe were confirming his words, Olivia's phone rang. She answered, listened briefly, and her face lost all color. What is it? Sterling demanded. Eleanor Davies has just been attacked. Someone broke into her house, destroyed everything, left a note. What did the note say? Olivia held up the phone, showing a photograph that had been sent to her. The note was written with letters cut out from magazines, like in suspense movies. Heroes bleed too, especially the little ones. Emily felt her legs give way. Sterling caught her before she fell. We have to get everyone out of here, Olivia said urgently. Move Daniel, Jensen, Emily, to a safe place where they won't. Emily's voice cut through the desperation. We are not going to hide. Emily, you're a child. You can't. I'm going to finish this. she cried, surprising both adults. I exposed Blackwood, I convinced the judge, I put all the pieces together, and I'm not going to hide now because a wicked woman wants to scare me. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice did not tremble. If she wants to scare me, then I'm going to scare her back. I'm going to show her that no matter how powerful she is, she can't win against someone who fights for love. Sterling looked at the girl in front of him and saw something that made him feel simultaneously proud and terrified. He saw someone willing to sacrifice everything. "What do you propose?" he finally asked. "A trap." Emily wiped away her tears. But this time, she's the mouse. In the adjacent room, Justice Robert Jensen stood in front of parallel bars, taking shaky but deliberate steps. The physiotherapist encouraged him, but Jensen barely listened. His mind was elsewhere. The door opened, and his eldest son, Andrew Jensen, rushed in. He was a 5-year-old, the same person Dr. Daniel had saved years ago. "Dad," he gasped, "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." Jensen sank into his wheelchair, exhausted but satisfied with his progress. "What's wrong, son? I received this today." Andrew extended an envelope. Inside were photographs. Photographs of him leaving his apartment, going to work, having lunch with friends. Each photo had a red X marked over his face. Color drained from Jensen's face. "When did this arrive?" "This morning." "Dad, is there something else?" "They said that if you testify against Blackwood's organization in the upcoming trial, I'm going to—" "No." Jensen interrupted him, his voice breaking. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You're going to what? Retract?" After all that had happened, Andrew knelt in front of his father. "Dad, listen to me. For years, I watched you live in that chair. A prisoner not of your body, but of your fear. And now, when you finally found the courage to stand up, you're going to sit back down. But you're my son. I can't risk. Dr. Clark saved me when I was 8 years old," Andrew interrupted. "He gave me a second chance at life. And do you know what I did with that chance? I studied medicine. I became a pediatrician. I've saved dozens of children because someone saved me first." Tears ran down Jensen's face. "If we die protecting what is right," Andrew continued, "then we die honoring the life Dr. Clark gave back to me. But if we live as cowards, then he saved me for nothing." Father and son embraced, both crying, both terrified, both determined. At that moment, Emily appeared at the door with Sterling and Olivia. "Your Honor," she said with a firm voice, "we need your help one more time, but this time it will be more dangerous than ever." That night, in a mansion on the outskirts of the city, Dr. Eleanor Vance received reports from Peter Wallace. "The threats were delivered," Peter reported. "Eleanor Davies is terrified. The judge's son too. In 24 hours, everyone will be too scared to testify." "And the girl?" Eleanor asked, taking a sip of expensive wine. "She's in the hospital, guarded, but vulnerable." "Good," Eleanor smiled. "Children are always a hero's weakness. When Dr. Clark sees what we'll do to his daughter—" "Excuse me for interrupting." A new voice joined the conversation. Both turned to see Dr. Marcus Thorne entering through the main door, escorted by security guards. "Dr. Thorne," Eleanor stood up, genuinely surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I came to make a deal," Thorne replied, his voice tired. "I know you're planning to hurt Emily, and I cannot allow another child to die because of this organization." "Your son already died, Doctor," Peter said cruelly. "What more can you lose?" "My soul," Thorne replied simply. "I've already lost my son. I've already lost my honor. But there's one thing I won't lose, the chance to do one right thing before I die." Eleanor studied him carefully. "What are you proposing?" "Let me take Emily out of the hospital. I'll give you a perfect opportunity to do what you have to do. In exchange, you leave Dr. Clark and everyone else alone." "Why would we make that deal?" Peter distrusted. "We can just take the girl whenever we want." "You can't," Thorne smiled bitterly. "Because now she has guards. Because the media follow her constantly. Any obvious move will be seen. But if I, the man who supposedly saved her, take her out of the hospital saying it's to protect her, no one will suspect." Eleanor considered this. "And what do you gain from this deal?" "Peace," Thorne responded. "The peace of knowing that I at least saved one thing in this disaster. Save the girl by having her turn in Dr. Clark. He will surrender for her, and I will finally be able to look my son in heaven without shame." Silence stretched. Finally, Eleanor nodded. "All right, Dr. Thorne, you have 24 hours to deliver the girl. If you fail, I won't fail." Thorne turned to leave. "Tomorrow at midnight, you will have Emily Clark, and this will finally end." When Thorne left the mansion, he walked to his car, legs trembling. He sat behind the wheel and cried for the first time since his son had died. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Sterling," he said when they answered. "I'm in. The plan is in motion." The next day, as the sun set over the city, Emily sat in her hospital room looking out the window. Her father finally slept after days without proper rest. Justice Jensen practiced walking in the next room, each step a triumph against years of self-imposed prison. And somewhere in that city, good people were preparing to risk everything in a desperate plan to stop a monster. Emily touched the window glass, observing her reflection. She saw a 10-year-old girl who had grown up too fast, who had learned things about the world that no child should know. But she also saw something else. She saw someone who had discovered that courage is not the absence of fear. It is doing what is right, even when you are terrified. "Tomorrow," she whispered to her reflection, "this ends one way or another." And in Dr. Eleanor Vance's mansion, the doctor looked out her own window, confident in her victory. She didn't know that the trap wasn't for Emily, it was for her, and it was about to close. Midnight. The abandoned warehouse on the city's outskirts was shrouded in shadows. Emily walked hand in hand with Dr. Marcus Thorne, who was supposedly leading her straight into Eleanor Vance's hands. But what no one could see were the 30 federal agents hidden in the upper rafters, the microscopic cameras sewn into Emily's clothes, and the snipers positioned in nearby buildings. "Are you scared?" Thorne asked her softly as they approached the warehouse doors. "I'm terrified," Emily admitted, "but my dad taught me that fear only wins when we stop doing what's right." Thorne squeezed her hand. "You're braver than any adult I know." The doors opened. Inside, Dr. Eleanor Vance waited with Peter Wallace and a dozen guards. The dim warehouse light created dancing shadows that made everything seem like a nightmare. "Dr. Thorne," Eleanor smiled, but there was no warmth in that smile. "I see you kept your part of the bargain. Here's the girl." Thorne gently pushed Emily forward. "Now you keep yours. Leave Dr. Clark and everyone else alone." "Of course," Eleanor lied smoothly, approaching Emily. "Little one, you've caused a lot of trouble, more than a child should. And you've hurt a lot of people," Emily responded, her voice firm despite the terror she felt, "more than anyone should." Eleanor knelt to be at Emily's height. "Do you know what happens to little girls who don't stay quiet? They become women who change the world," Emily replied, looking her directly in the eyes. For a moment, something flickered in Eleanor's expression, surprise perhaps, or involuntary respect. "A pity," she finally said, standing up. "We could have used someone with your determination in our organization. Peter, take her to the 2 where." "Exactly." A new voice resonated through the warehouse. The main light suddenly flared on, temporarily blinding everyone. When vision cleared, Arthur Sterling stood at the main entrance, flanked by federal agents with drawn weapons. "Dr. Eleanor Vance," Sterling announced formally, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, trafficking in counterfeit medication, bribery of public officials, and approximately 37 additional charges." Eleanor's face transformed from confidence to fury in an instant. "How? How did you know I would come personally?" Thorne stepped forward, moving away from Eleanor's guards. "Because I studied your psychological profile for months. You never trust dirty work to others. You always want to be present for the final blow. Your ego doesn't allow you to do anything else." "Traitor." Peter tried to reach for his weapon, but 3 agents tackled him before he could touch it. "I'm not a traitor," Thorne said calmly as they handcuffed Peter. "I'm a father who lost his son because of this organization, and now I'll make sure no other parent goes through the same thing." Eleanor tried to back towards a rear exit, but found her way blocked. Justice Robert Jensen emerged from the shadows, but not in his wheelchair. He walked slowly with a cane for support, but he walked with restored dignity. "Dr. Vance," he said, and his voice carried the weight of years of justice finally being served. "In my capacity as a superior court judge, I will personally ensure that you face every charge, every life you destroyed, every family you ruined." "You," Eleanor pointed at him with a trembling finger. "You were paralyzed. How a brave child taught me that the prisons we build in our minds are stronger than any physical cage," Jensen responded, "and that the only path to true freedom is to do what's right, no matter the cost." Emily ran to him. Jensen extended his free arm, and she took refuge against his side as agents surrounded Eleanor. "This isn't over," Eleanor hissed as they handcuffed her. "I have lawyers, connections, friends in high places. You had." Olivia Riley appeared, holding a tablet, "because in the last 30 minutes, while you were here, federal agents simultaneously arrested 17 corrupt officials on your payroll, including 2 senators, 5 judges, and the director of the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Agency." As Eleanor paled, "Because Emily didn't just plan to catch you," Sterling explained. "She planned to dismantle your entire network, every name in Thorne's documents, every bank transfer, every recorded conversation. We used it all." "A child," Eleanor whispered with absolute disbelief. "A 10-year-old girl destroyed me." "No," Emily spoke in a clear voice. "Your own evil destroyed you. I just made sure the world saw it." At that moment, the back doors of the warehouse opened. Dr. Daniel Clark ran in. He had been waiting in the command vehicle as part of the plan. When he saw Emily safe and sound, his legs almost gave way with relief. "Dad!" Emily ran to him, launching herself into his arms. Daniel caught her, spinning her in the air, tears streaming freely down his face. "My brave one, my heroic one, my little giant. We did it, Dad!" Emily sobbed against his neck. "It's over. We're safe now. Thanks to you." Daniel gently put her down, kneeling to look into her eyes. "Thanks to your courage, your intelligence, your huge heart that never stopped believing in what's right." Father and daughter embraced as the agents led a handcuffed Eleanor Vance out. Eleanor Davies, who had been coordinating from the command center, entered the warehouse with tears in her eyes. "Dr. Clark," she said in a broken voice, "for 40 years I've seen a lot in hospitals, but I've never seen anything like what this child did for you." "She saved more than my life," Daniel responded, hugging Emily tighter. "She saved me from losing faith in humanity." 3 weeks later, the Supreme Court courtroom was filled to capacity, but this time it wasn't to judge Dr. Daniel Clark. It was to honor him. Emily sat in the front row, wearing a beautiful dress that Eleanor Davies had insisted on buying her. Beside her were Olivia and Sterling. Behind them, dozens of patients Daniel had saved over the years. Justice Robert Jensen presided over the ceremony. He stood behind the bench, without a cane, without support. He had spent 3 weeks in intensive therapy and could now walk almost without difficulty. Videos of his recovery had become an inspiration to millions of people facing their own battles. "Dr. Daniel Clark," Jensen announced, his voice resonating with restored authority. "For 15 years, you have served this community with exemplary dedication. You have saved lives when others refused to risk it. You have defended the vulnerable when others looked away. And you have taught all of us the true meaning of the Hippocratic Oath." Daniel ascended to the stand, overwhelmed with emotion. "But more importantly," Jensen continued, "you taught us that true greatness is not in never falling, but in getting up every time we fall. In my case, literally." Soft laughter filled the room. "Therefore, it is my honor to present you with the Citizen's Medal of Merit, the highest distinction this court can bestow. Dr. Clark, you represent the best of humanity." When Jensen placed the medal around Daniel's neck, the applause was deafening, but Daniel only had eyes for one person. "Your Honor," he said when the applause subsided, "as much as I appreciate this honor, there is someone else who deserves this recognition much more than I do." He turned to Emily, my daughter, who at 10 years old showed more courage than most people show in an entire lifetime, who risked everything to defend what was right, who taught us all that age doesn't matter when your heart is big enough. Emily stood, her cheeks red with embarrassment, as everyone turned to her. "She is my hero," Daniel continued, his voice breaking. "And if there is justice in this world, someday she will receive the recognition she deserves. I believe, Doctor." Marcus Thorne stood from his seat. "That day is today." One by one, everyone in the room stood up. The applause began softly, then grew. Then it turned into an ovation that shook the walls. Emily openly wept now, overwhelmed by the love surrounding her. Eleanor Davies walked to the stand and placed a wreath of fresh flowers on Emily's head. "For the bravest child I have ever known," she whispered. That night in the apartment they could finally call home without fear. Daniel tucked Emily into her bed. For the first time in weeks, both could sleep without guards at the door, without nightmares lurking. "Dad," Emily said as he gave her a goodnight kiss, "do you think the world is a little better now?" Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, stroking her hair. "I think the world is infinitely better because you are in it. Because you reminded us that one person, no matter how small, can change everything when they decide to do what's right." "But was it worth it?" Emily asked in a small voice. "All the fear, all the pain. Look around you." Daniel pointed to the letters covering the walls of her room. Letters from grateful people, from saved families, from children inspired by her bravery. "Look how many lives you touched. How many people found courage because you found it first. Justice Jensen is walking." Emily smiled. "Dr. Thorne found his redemption," Daniel added, "and you are free." Emily hugged him tightly. "Because you never gave up." Daniel kissed her forehead. because you believed in me when no one else did. 6 months later, Emily was in her schoolyard during recess when a smaller girl timidly approached. "Are you?" the girl asked. "The girl from the video? The one who made the judge walk?" Emily smiled. "That's me. What's your name?" "Lily," she replied, "and I want to be brave like you too, but I'm scared." Emily knelt to be at Lily's height. "Do you know a secret? I was scared too. I was terrified every day, but I learned something important." "What?" "That courage isn't not being afraid. Courage is doing what's right even when you're trembling with terror. It's standing up for those you love. It's standing firm when it would be easier to give up." Lily looked at her with big eyes. "Can I be brave like you someday?" "You can be brave right now." Emily extended her hand. "Every time you tell the truth, every time you stand up for someone, every time you do what's right, even when it's hard, that's bravery." Lily took her hand, smiling for the first time, and in that moment Emily understood that this was what truly mattered. Not the medals, not the recognition, but inspiring the next brave child to find her own voice. In his renovated medical office, Dr. Daniel Clark attended to his last patient of the day. The walls were covered with photographs, recovered patients, reunited families, saved lives, and in the center, framed in gold, was a photo of Emily standing in the courtroom, pointing at Victor Blackwood with the caption, "A girl changed the world." Justice Robert Jensen completed his first 5K marathon, crossing the finish line with tears of joy. His son Andrew ran by his side, as did Emily, who had insisted on accompanying them. Dr. Marcus Thorne opened a foundation in memory of his son, providing free treatments for children with terminal illnesses. On the inauguration plaque was written, "In honor of all brave children, especially Emily Clark, who taught us that redemption is possible." And in a maximum security cell, Dr. Eleanor Vance served an 80-year sentence, with no possibility of parole. Victor Blackwood was in the adjacent cell with a similar sentence. But the story did not end there, because in schools across the country, teachers told the story of Emily Clark, the girl who defied a corrupt system, the girl who saved her father, the girl who taught a paralyzed judge how to walk again. And in every classroom, in every recess, in every home, children listened to that story and understood something fundamental, that you don't have to be big to make a big difference, that you don't have to be an adult to stand up for what's right, that a small voice, when it speaks the truth, can be more powerful than 1,000 lies. That night, under the stars shining over the city, Emily was on her apartment balcony with her father. Months had passed since that Tuesday in the courthouse that changed everything. "Dad," she asked, resting her head against him. "Yes, my brave one. If you had to go through it all again, would you?" Daniel hugged her tighter. "Every second of pain, every moment of fear, every tear. I would do it all again, if it means having this moment with you now. Free, together, victorious." "Me too," Emily whispered, "because I learned that love always wins. Maybe not immediately, maybe not easily, but in the end, love always wins." And as the stars shone above, father and daughter held each other, knowing they had fought the hardest battle of their lives, and had won not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they never stopped believing in the power of doing what's right. And that, in the end, is the lesson the world needs to remember, that one brave person can change the world, especially when that person is small, determined, and has a heart big enough to love, even when taught to hate.